I never thought I'd be the guy writing this kind of story, but here I am. My name's James, and I'm just trying to get this off my chest because, honestly, I'm still trying to process how my life went from normal to total chaos in such a short amount of time. I met Emily about 3 years ago. She was the kind of girl who knew what she wanted, confident, a little bitchy, but charming enough to get away with it. We clicked pretty fast, or at least I thought so. She was beautiful, smart, and seemed genuinely into me, or so I believed. We'd been planning our wedding for months. Everything was supposed to be perfect, flowers, cake, the usual. I was excited, honestly. I trusted her completely. But there were little signs, little things I brushed off because I didn't want to believe they meant anything. She'd suddenly become more secretive about her phone, always texting in private, and she'd disappear for hours sometimes, claiming she was at work or hanging out with her friends. I'd ask questions and she'd brush me off, say I was being paranoid or insecure. I thought maybe I was just overreacting. She'd call me clingy if I pressed too much, and that was her classic move, shut down any suspicion with a blow-off or a snarky comment. Then came the bigger signs. She started dressing differently, more provocative, more confident. And not in a good way, more like she was trying to impress someone. I noticed she started avoiding me in bed, claiming she was too tired or stressed. It was weird because before, we had a very active sex life. Then suddenly, the intimacy was gone, replaced by cold shoulders and half-hearted kisses. I guess I was naive, or maybe just in denial because I loved her so much. I kept telling myself she was stressed, busy with wedding stuff, or maybe just tired. I didn't want to admit that she might be hiding something, or that I might be losing her. One night, I decided to check her phone. I never normally do that, but something just felt off. I needed to know. I cracked it open when she was in the shower. I found messages, flirty, suggestive texts between her and someone named Mark. My stomach dropped. Mark was our mutual friend, someone I trusted, someone Emily had always claimed was just a bro. The messages weren't just friendly, they were openly sexual, talking about meeting up, sneaking away to have some fun, and how she couldn't wait to see him again. My heart sank. I couldn't believe it. It was like a punch to the gut. I stared at the screen in disbelief. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? Were they doing it before the wedding? How long had I been living a lie? I felt numb, frozen in place. I didn't want to believe it, but the proof was right there, flashing in front of my face. I was furious, betrayed, and utterly humiliated. I thought I knew Emily. I thought she was the girl I was going to marry, the girl I loved. Turns out she'd been lying straight to my face for months. The worst part, she's the type to deny everything, even when caught red-handed. That's when I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't ready for what she'd say or do next. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. My hands were trembling, but I knew I couldn't let her see how much she had rattled me. I quietly put the phone back where I found it and waited for her to come out of the shower. When she finally stepped into the room, she looked at me with that smug little smile she always had when she thought she was in control. That's when I snapped. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could feel the anger bubbling up. Her eyes narrowed, and she immediately started with the usual defensive bullshit. "What's wrong, James? Are you upset about something? Because I swear you're reading way too much into things." She played innocent, batting her lashes, trying to brush it off like I was just paranoid. I looked at her and just said, "Don't lie to me. I know what I saw. You've been cheating on me with Mark." The words felt like a punch, but I forced them out. Her face flickered. She was caught, but she always had some kind of excuse at the ready. Her reaction was classic Emily. She scoffed, rolled her eyes, and said, "Oh, come on, James. You're overreacting. That's just nonsense. Mark and I are just friends. You're jealous because you're insecure, like always." She tried to play the victim, like I was the one blowing things out of proportion, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. The proof was right there on her phone. I told her flat out that I saw the texts, that I knew they'd been sneaking around behind my back. She looked annoyed now, like I'd just spoiled her fun. She crossed her arms and shot back, "You're crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. You're just being paranoid. Mark and I, we're just friends. It's not what you think." Her voice was high-pitched, almost mocking. It was obvious she was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt what I saw, but I wasn't going to let her. That's when she started with the lies. She said she'd never cheated, never had sex with Mark, that those texts were just stupid jokes, harmless flirting, that she loved me and that I was just overreacting because I was insecure or stressed about the wedding. It was all crap. She spun this web of lies, trying to convince me that I was imagining things, that I was crazy for believing she'd cheat. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd seen enough. Her words didn't matter. What mattered was that she'd lied to me, betrayed me, and broken every ounce of trust I had. I felt sick, disgusted, and betrayed all at once. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stay with someone who lied and cheated and then had the nerve to deny it. My mind was racing, trying to figure out my next move while she kept spinning her lies. I knew that I was going to have to make a choice. Either forgive her and try to move past this, or finally face the reality that my future with her was over. But right now, I just felt numb, like I'd been punched in the chest, and I didn't know how to breathe or what to do next. After she finished her little speech, I just stared at her, trying to process everything. My mind was racing a mile a minute. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, so stupid. All those late nights, all those trust me talks, and she was out there fucking around with Mark, lying to my face about everything. I felt this surge of rage, but also this crushing sadness. How did it come to this? How did the girl I was about to marry turn into someone who would betray me so openly? I needed to step back, clear my head. I couldn't just explode and lose control, at least not yet. I asked her to leave the room, told her I needed some time to think. She looked pissed, trying to argue, trying to manipulate, but I wasn't having it. I told her she could go stay at her sister for a while. She threw some more jabs about how I was overreacting, how I was crazy for accusing her of something so ridiculous. She kept insisting it was all a mistake, that Mark was just a stupid distraction, that she loved me and only me. But I wasn't buying any of that anymore. I felt like my entire world was crashing down around me. I sat there on the couch, staring at the floor, and I couldn't stop the flood of emotions. Shock, anger, disappointment, betrayal. I'd trusted her with everything. I'd planned this future, built a life with her, and she'd been lying to me the whole time, for months, while I was living in this bubble of supposed happiness. She was out there behind my back. The worst part, I was starting to question myself. Maybe I missed the signs. Maybe I was too blind to see it. Maybe I was just some naive fool who believed in love too much. That's what hurt the most, knowing I'd been played, that she'd been pretending to be the perfect wife-to-be, all while secretly sneaking around with Mark. That bastard. I'd always considered him a good guy, a friend, someone I trusted. Turns out he was just as much a part of her deception as she was. I was so mad I could feel my fists clenching, but I knew I had to hold it together. I didn't want to do anything I'd regret later. I just wanted to be alone, to think, to understand how I was going to deal with this mess. I sat there in silence, staring at the wall, trying to hold back the tears and the rage. I felt so helpless, so betrayed, like everything I believed in was just a lie. And the worst thing, I knew this was only the beginning of what was coming. I was about to find out just how deep the rabbit hole went, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. I stayed there in silence for what felt like hours, just trying to gather my thoughts. My mind kept replaying everything, her sneaking around, the texts, the way she lied so effortlessly. I kept asking myself how I missed all those signs. How did I not see it coming? I was furious at her, but deep down I was also heartbroken. I'd loved her, trusted her, and she'd turned around and played me for the fool. That mix of anger and sadness was almost unbearable. Eventually, I knew I had to make some decisions. I couldn't keep going in this limbo, not knowing if she was still lying, if she was seeing Mark, if I'd ever really be able to trust her again. So I decided I'd confront her with everything I found out and ask her exactly what was going on. I was angry, yes, but I also just wanted the truth. I needed to hear her admit it. I didn't care anymore if she spun more lies. I just wanted to know what she was really thinking, what her game was. When she came back that night, she was trying to act normal, like nothing had happened. She looked at me with that smirk, thinking she had the upper hand, but I was done playing nice. I told her flat out I knew about Mark, about the cheating, about the lies. I asked her outright if she'd been sleeping with him, if she'd been lying about everything. Her face went blank for a second, then she started with the usual deflections. "Oh, James, you're just overreacting again. You always jump to conclusions. Mark is just a friend. You're paranoid, you don't trust me." Her tone was so dismissive, like I was just some crazy guy making up stories, but I wasn't stupid anymore. I'd seen enough. I told her I didn't want to hear any more lies, that I deserved honesty, and I wanted her to tell me the truth, no matter how bad it was. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, but not out of remorse, more like she was trying to manipulate me. She said she was sorry I found out, that she loved me, and that Mark was just a mistake that she didn't mean to happen, that she was so stressed about the wedding and everything, and she just lost control. She kept saying she'd never cheat if she truly loved me, that it was just a stupid lapse. But I looked at her and just thought, no, this is who you really are. You lied to my face for months. I felt so angry that I could barely speak, but I told her I was done. Done with the lies, done with her excuses. I told her to leave the apartment and never come back unless she was ready to be honest with herself and with me. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed awake, replaying everything, feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. It's like my heart was shattered into a million pieces, and I didn't even know how to begin picking them up. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far, how I was so blind to what was happening right under my nose. I kept thinking about Mark, about how I'd trusted him too, and now I saw he was just as much a liar and a cheat. My mind was a storm of emotions, anger, sadness, confusion, and I knew I'd never be the same after this. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. The house seemed empty without her, and every little thing reminded me of how much I'd trusted her, how much I loved her. But at the same time, the betrayal was so raw, so fresh, that I couldn't ignore it. I kept replaying the scenes, the lies, the moment I found out, each time feeling that same sickening anger rise up again. It was like a wound that wouldn't heal, no matter how much I wanted to forget. I made a decision. I knew I couldn't stay in that apartment, surrounded by all the memories of what we were supposed to have. I needed space, time to think, to breathe. I told her to pack her things and leave for good. I didn't want her back. I wanted her out of my life until I could figure out what I wanted to do next. Honestly, part of me was hoping she'd come crawling back, begging for forgiveness, but I knew better. Emily was never that kind of girl. She'd lie her way out of anything, manipulate her way through whatever she could. The first few days after she left, I felt a mix of relief and emptiness. I'd always believed in commitment, in honesty, and now that belief was shattered. I kept asking myself how I'd let it get so bad, how I'd missed the signs. The worst part, a small voice inside kept whispering that maybe I was partly to blame. Maybe I should have seen through her, asked more questions, demanded more honesty. But truthfully, I didn't want to believe I'd been so naive. I had loved her so much I'd convinced myself she was perfect, that she was my forever. Turns out, she was just a master at pretending. One of the hardest moments was when I finally went through her phone again, just to make sure I'd seen everything. I found more messages, more lies, more plans. She'd been talking about Mark like he was her secret, her escape, her fake happiness. There were texts where she'd say things like, "Can't wait to see you tonight," or "Still thinking about that night we had," even after she claimed they never crossed the line. Seeing all that, feeling the betrayal again, made me realize I'd been living in a bubble. I'd given her everything, my trust, my heart, and she'd thrown it all away with her lies. I decided I couldn't just ignore it anymore. I reached out to Mark, demanded to know what the hell was going on from his side. When we finally talked, he didn't deny it. He admitted they'd been seeing each other for months, right before the wedding, and he always knew she was engaged. His excuse: "It was just sex. We got carried away. I didn't think she'd actually go through with it." That was his big story. Honestly, I didn't care about his lame excuse. The fact was, they'd both lied to my face, betrayed me, and I was done with it. As much as I hated to admit it, I eventually realized I had to let go. I couldn't keep holding onto the anger forever. It was eating me alive. I knew I needed to move forward, even if that meant starting over completely. I started seeing a counselor to help process everything, because I knew if I didn't, I'd carry this pain forever. Every day was a struggle, but I told myself I deserved better. I deserved honesty, respect, and someone who wouldn't cheat and lie their way out of the relationship. Looking back now, I've learned a lot. I learned that love isn't enough if it's not built on trust. I learned that people can surprise you, sometimes in really shitty ways. And I learned that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to walk away and rebuild from scratch. I don't regret what happened because it taught me how to recognize the warning signs and, more importantly, how to value myself. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing. I'll never tolerate someone lying to me again. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize how life can change in an instant. One moment you think you're building a future with someone, and the next, you're picking up the pieces of a broken trust that took years to develop. I won't lie. It's been the hardest thing I've ever gone through. The betrayal cut so deep that I honestly thought I might never recover from it. But over time, I learned to rebuild my sense of self, piece by piece. I've come to understand that some people aren't who they pretend to be, no matter how much you want to see the best in them. Emily was good at hiding her true nature, at lying with a smile, at convincing herself she was innocent while doing the opposite. That realization was a punch to the gut, but it also set me free. I no longer have to chase after someone who doesn't value me or my trust. What I want others to know, anyone out there facing something similar, is that you're not alone. It's okay to feel devastated, to cry, to get angry, and to ask questions. But don't let the pain define you. Take the lessons, learn to spot the warning signs early, and most importantly, never settle for less than honesty and respect. If someone cheats on you and lies to your face, it's a reflection of who they are, not who you are. You deserve better always. I still have scars, I probably always will, but they remind me that I survived, that I'm stronger than I thought, and that someday I'll trust again, not blindly but smartly. Because the key isn't avoiding heartbreak, it's knowing your worth and walking away when someone doesn't meet your standards. So here I am, moving on. Still hurt, still learning, but better for it. And I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar finds the strength to do the same. Because no betrayal, no matter how deep, should keep you from living your best life. Trust, once broken, is hard to repair, but self-respect can build new foundations. And that's what I'm doing now, building myself back up.